You ever wonder why sometimes the kinder you are, the worse people seem to treat you? Let's talk about that. See, kindness is one of the most powerful traits a person can have. It builds bridges, diffuses conflict, and earns trust. But here's the hard truth. Most people won't tell you when kindness isn't grounded in self, respect, and clear boundaries, it doesn't always inspire admiration. Sometimes it invites disrespect. Now, why does that happen? The answer lies in how human psychology works. People are wired to assess others constantly. We're scanning for cues, signals, patterns, and in the absence of direct communication, people rely on what you do to determine what they can do to you. So when someone sees that you're always available, always agreeable, always forgiving without question or pushback, they don't always interpret that as compassion. They start interpreting it as a lack of strength, and that's where things shift. Because strength, emotional strength, psychological strength, is what most people unconsciously respect. When you're kind without boundaries, what you're unintentionally doing is signaling that you will accept being second, that you will tolerate mistreatment to avoid conflict, that you'll swallow disrespect just to keep the peace. And once that perception sets in, even good people may begin to overlook your needs, ignore your voice, or test your limits. Let me be clear. This doesn't make your kindness the problem. The problem is that the kindness isn't anchored. It's floating. It's not tied to a firm inner core that says, I care about you, but I also care about me. That's where boundaries come in. Boundaries are not walls. They're not ultimatums. They are the invisible fences of self-respect. They're how you teach others where your line is, where respect starts and where manipulation ends. Without them, your kindness becomes a tool others can use against you. With them, your kindness becomes a gift people feel honored to receive. Let's make it practical. Think about the person who's constantly saying yes to every request, every demand, every ask. Whether at work, in a relationship, or with family, over time what happens? People start expecting that yes, they stop appreciating it. And more dangerously, they begin to assume you don't have anything more important going on, that their time matters more than yours. You've accidentally trained them to believe your kindness is bottomless, and that you won't hold them accountable if they take too much. It doesn't start with evil intentions. It's just human nature. When there's no friction, people keep pushing. When there's no resistance, they don't pause to ask if they've gone too far. Philosophers like Aristotle spoke of the golden mean, the idea that virtue exists between extremes. Too much indulgence, you become passive. Too much aggression, you become harsh. But in the middle, where courage meets compassion, that's where virtue lives. Kindness works the same way. If it's not balanced by inner strength, it becomes appeasement. Appeasement doesn't win respect. It wins dependency, and sometimes even contempt. So how do you fix that? How do you remain kind without being disrespected? You start by redefining what kindness means to you. Real kindness isn't about never saying no. It's not about always being available. It's about caring deeply, but not at the cost of yourself. It's being able to show grace and grit. It's knowing when to offer help and when to step back so someone can learn to help themselves. It's listening with empathy, but speaking with conviction when your values are challenged. You stop apologizing for having standards. You stop watering yourself down just to be more likable. And you start letting people experience the full you, not the edited version you present just to avoid tension. You want to know the moment everything shifts? It's when you realize that your value is not determined by how much you're willing to endure silently. It's defined by how much you respect yourself and whether your actions align with that self-respect. That's when the energy around you changes. That's when people who once pushed your limits start noticing they can't do that anymore. not because you've become unkind, but because you've become clear. And clarity is magnetic. Clarity commands attention. Clarity teaches others, this is who I am, this is what I tolerate, and this is what I don't, without ever needing to raise your voice. Some of the kindest, strongest people in history, leaders, healers, thinkers, they weren't kind because they feared conflict. They were kind in spite of conflict. They knew how to extend generosity without giving up their backbone. They knew that real influence doesn't come from pleasing people. It comes from knowing who you are and being unshakable in that identity. So the next time someone tells you, you're too nice, don't just take that as a compliment. Ask yourself, am I being nice at my own expense? Is my kindness coming from strength or from fear? Because if it's coming from fear, from the desire to be liked, from the hope that people won't reject you, then that's not kindness. That's self-abandonment in disguise, and eventually people start to notice. Not consciously, not maliciously, but they do. And the respect starts to fade. But when your kindness is rooted in strength, when it comes with boundaries, clarity, and unwavering self-respect, then it becomes undeniable. Then people don't just like you, they respect you. And when people respect you, they treat you differently. They think twice before crossing a line. They show up with more care, more attention, more integrity. Because they know you value yourself, and people can only meet you at the level you've met yourself. So don't stop being kind. Just stop letting your kindness come at the cost of your dignity. Let your kindness be a strength, not a signal that you'll tolerate anything. Let it be a standard, not a sacrifice. Let it be rooted, not reactive. You know, there's this common belief floating around that if you're just nice enough, if you go out of your way for people, show up for them, never say no, they'll value you more. That being endlessly agreeable will somehow earn you love, loyalty, and respect. But I've got to be real with you, it usually doesn't work that way. In fact, more often than not, it backfires, because people-pleasing, though it may wear the costume of kindness, isn't actually rooted in strength. It's rooted in fear, and fear never commands respect. Fear seeks permission. Fear performs. It adapts. It compromises core needs in exchange for temporary approval. And over time, people start to sense that. You see, when you're constantly trying to please everyone, you're actually sending a subtle but powerful message. My value is based on your reaction to me. My peace depends on whether or not you approve of me. My boundaries are flexible if it means I get to avoid tension. That kind of energy doesn't inspire trust. It doesn't create healthy dynamics. What it does is make people feel like they can take from you without limit. It's not that people consciously want to disrespect you. It's just that when you constantly prioritize others at the expense of yourself, you're teaching them that your needs come last. And here's the psychological depth of it. Humans, by nature, are driven by consistency. We treat people based on how they treat themselves. So if you treat your own time, voice, or energy as disposable, guess what? So will everyone else. I'm not saying you shouldn't help people. I'm not saying you should become cold or rigid. What I'm saying is that there's a major difference between kindness and self-erasure. When every decision you make is filtered through the question, will they still like me if I do this? You're not being generous. You're being held hostage by your own need to be accepted. And that's where the disrespect begins. People start canceling plans on you last minute, and you act like it's no big deal. They speak to you in ways they wouldn't tolerate themselves, and you brush it off. You're always available, always giving, always the one adjusting, and they stop seeing your effort as a gift. It becomes the expectation, the baseline. And when that becomes the baseline, anything less than your full sacrifice feels like neglect to them. Now here's the philosophical piece. The great thinkers, whether it's the Stoics or modern psychologists, They all touch on this same idea. You cannot find fulfillment in life if you're constantly living for other people's expectations. Living in fear of disappointing someone else is a quiet form of self-betrayal. It chips away at your identity one yes at a time. You start to lose your own voice in the noise of pleasing others. You say yes when your soul is screaming no. You show up for everyone but start resenting it because deep down you know you're never doing it from fullness. You're doing it from fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being seen as difficult. And that's the trap, because the more you